I am so honored and delighted to host this event with the BCLF and the Center for Fiction and Lisa. And that this is an international event. Lisa, you are presently in Trinidad, right?
In Tobago, to be precise, but yes,
Oh,
in
even
Trinidad and
very
Tobago.
nice. Okay, all right. Um, I want to talk before we get into the book. The first thing I want to do, this is your publication day. I want to say congratulations on your publication. Yes. And I do have a little cocktail. I want to do a little toast with you. Here's to the success of your book. Here is to the accomplishment of having published your first adult book. And the world is your oyster. I cannot wait for more people to discover and read this book because it's an important one. So cheers.
Thank you. Thank you. Bless you for saying that.
Mm-hmm. No,
Mm.
absolutely. You
And
know,
that's my host whose rum punch I'm stealing.
oh, very nice. Just have a rum and coke. Um, so with this book, this is your first adult novel. Can you talk just briefly before we get into the book itself about your career as a Caribbean resident writer? How has it been? This is a book that is published that the world can get, but I know it's not an easy road always for writers who reside in the Caribbean.
That's a beautiful understatement, my dear. Thank you, Patrice, for saying it so kindly. It's well nigh an impossible. I am pretty much a unicorn because I have no agent and I live in the region.
Wow.
So that I have been published at all is a miracle of God's will and my own dogged persistence. And connections, I network relentlessly.
Mm-hmm.
So my first access to international publication was with Macmillan Caribbean, and Joanne Johnson actually um, started a series of fantasy novels for tweens, right? And I learned about it through my journalism work, and I said, "Hey, that sounded good." So I went and I pitched, and I got through.
Yes.
And so that's how I ended up with my first young adult book. And it's just always been a mixture of persistence and just keeping a keen eye out for opportunities. Because even this book is published by Myriad Editions, which is a UK publishing company. And how I managed to, I happen to have been on their mailing list
Mm.
because I was in Daughters of Africa, New Daughters of Africa, which they
Mm.
published, which Margaret Busby edited.
Okay.
And she invited me to be a part of the collection. And after that, I just stayed on their mailing list. And when I saw call for submissions, I was like, what? Unagented submissions accepted?
Amazing. Yes.
So I just went for it. And
You already
it was
had the book in mind at that point? You already knew the book? The book was already written?
oh yeah, the book was written and rejected by a number of publishers
Wow.
previously.
Okay. Okay.
I
You
mean,
know,
not like Marlon James rejection or anything, nothing so dramatic. Like I literally sent it to about two or three publishers whose work I know and respect and who may or may not have published me in the past.
hmm
And they were like, eh. So I take back my damn book.
Take
I
back the
said, okay,
damn
let
book
me
and
wait
put
for
it out.
somebody.
Yeah, put it another way, put it out with the people who get it and the people who need to receive it. I mean, there's a variety of reasons that they may not have been ready. And I will say this is a book. I was reading some of the glowing blurbs from Nalu Hopkinson and Kai Miller about this book that it's unputdownable and it's something that is so visceral it gets under your skin. But I do want to begin with a trigger warning because it's about domestic violence. It is about the cycle of violence, and that's what makes it get under your skin, and that's what makes it hard to put down in some ways, but that's what makes it resonant and real, and relevant to so many people. What made you There's so many ways that you could begin a book. Talk about the genesis of this book, if you don't mind.
Hmm.
We get in deep early.
Okay. Wayne Brown was this amazing Trinidadian author. He was a poet and a journalist and an essayist and just amazing guy. And I really admired him. I went to secondary school with his daughter Marielle, and always wanted to do one of his workshops, couldn't afford it. Later in his life, like literally just before he died, he offered another workshop, and he was in Jamaica, I was in Trinidad. And so we did something that was fairly unusual for the time, which is do an online workshop. And I decided that instead of workshopping something that I'd already written, I'd like to create something for this workshop.
Mm,
And when I dreamt about what it is I wanted to create, this character came up. The scene was not published. It was cut in from an early draft.
okay.
The original scene that I sat and wrote,
Okay. Okay.
that is. But the character stayed.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I don't know where the characters come from. Dark recesses of one's psyche.
Yeah, it's an amalgamation of experiences and people that you've known, people that you see, people you might have sat next to on a maxi. I mean, it could have come from all over the place. But when you say the character, you're talking about Alethea.
Yes.
Okay.
So this story is about um, a woman who's turning 40,
Mhm.
and you could say 40 is the new 20 or whatever you want to say, but 40 is still 40. And
Mhm.
turning 40 has a certain kind of, I mean, everything changes: your skin, your face, your body, your eyesight, everything changes when you hit 40. And so she's approaching this. Come there. Big woman talking here.
Yep, you said eyesight. I'm like, that's very true. So true.
Everything changes. And so she's approaching this milestone, and um she's unmarried, but worse yet, she have no children.
Mhm.
So she's kind of in this kind of stock taking moment, and her wonderful boyfriend, who loves her very much and put her in the house,
Mhm.
also beats her mercilessly, and is very abusive in other ways in the
Mhm.
relationship, um, which you could read the book to find out. But she's a what we I mean she's a normal average lady. She's working in a clothes shop on Frederick Street,
Right.
where she's also sleeping with her boss. But the thing is that in her personal life, she has no power in her home. She
Mm,
no personal power. So the one thing that she could sneak and get away with, she just sneak and get away with.
right. Yeah.
And so
Uh,
it's a story that looks at, yes, it's about the cycle of domestic violence, because it looks at how she arrived at this place where she living with this man who just beat her all the time, and who is this person, like where she from,
mhm.
who her mother was, who her
Mhm.
father was. You kind of get the backstory to the development of this person, who on the surface may seem very vain, very sort of fatalistic, very. I never thought she was a likable character, actually.
That's really interesting to hear from the author. you know, there's times that I struggled a little bit with her likability, but it wasn't about her likability. It was about what the reality of her situation and the reality of looking at it from a bigger perspective of what so many women are going through around the world, as well as in Trinidad, gender-based violence and a legacy of continued violence in families. And um how do you break out of it? Like, so yes, she made some decisions and did some things that I was just like, Alethea, what you doing? But but I felt that I could have that relationship with her because she was so vividly drawn. Before we get into too much further detail, I want to hold on, what happens to my phone? Let me hold up a copy of the cover. We both are working with PDFs because we're in a digital world, right? We're talking about online workshops. We have online books too. But this is what the cover actually looks like. and it is absolutely beautiful, and it is by Brianna McCarthy, also a Trinidadian artist. Can you talk a little bit about the cover and the design?
Right. So the cover is actually two different elements, which is the text and a painting.
Mm-hmm.
So the painting is by Brianna McCarthy, and what happened? She's a really lovely Trinidadian artist. She just had some of her work featured on, oh gosh, girl, I forget which channel, but it was a TV show, maybe a
Okay.
TV series. McGill Big, I love she, and no, her stuff is,
International.
look at that.
The work is
So
fantastic.
when they asked if I had ideas about the cover, I was like, could you ask Brianna? And
Yeah.
so she gave us this piece to use. And then the editor, I just realized yesterday, Vicky Heath Silk, also did the cover design, which is the arrangement of the text and decisions around colors and da, da, da. But this works so well.
It really did, because I'm
I'm
gonna zoom
really,
in a little bit on her face. Like, you can see there's a hauntedness in her eyes as well. That is what, what your character is going through. Um, I guess a good way to begin really diving deeper into it would be to ask you to read a little bit, if you don't mind.
I don't
Um,
mind at all. I
that's a
love readings. I'll read for the whole thing if you ask me to.
No, you're not gonna do that. You have questions to answer. But which section are we reading from? And is it from the beginning? From the earlier section?
Yeah, it's like a very early, it's a very early scene in the book where the main character, whose name is Alethea or Miss Ali, she decides that just so she's gonna tell this girl that she works with that she just get beat because she walks around and pretends like everything is normal. So the girl asks her, well, what you get for Christmas? And she say, you know what? So what is this big secret thing Leo give you for Christmas? Tamika sat down by the table and take a bite from she pricks and watch me mischievously. She eyes practically sparkling. I still standing up by the kettle. I suck my teeth and set up myself to show she. My belly boiling, fuss and nervous. But outside I was cool. Curiosity killed the cat, Miss Tamika. I pulled my shirt out my waistband. What is this? Tamika was squeaking, excited like a little child in a birthday party as she sipping she tea. I feel she figured it was a navel ring or a tattoo I going and show she. She didn't notice my face was serious like a police in court. When I unbuttoned the shirt, she put on she tea and she hands started to shake. Miss Ali, what the hell? You see, Leo give me. I shake my shoulders and I shrug and button back up the shirt. She just sat down there with she lip quivering and she eye filling up with water. Finally, tears rolling down she face. She say, soft, soft, soft. You call the police? Police? You're joking? What police go do? Say it's man and woman business and leave me to get more cut ass? No, girl, Tamika say in a rush. Things different now. There is actually help. I hold up my hand and stop she right there. If Leo only know I call police for he, is even more like psycho get. All kind of expressions was passing on she face. Horror, disgust, sorrow, but then rage settle around she mouth and draw out she eyes to finally look at me. Why you the same as Ali? You know, that is the first question people is ask. Nobody doesn't ask why he don't stop beating you. As if somehow it's a normal thing for a man to beat a woman. Yet it's not normal for a woman to stay with a man who beaten she. If it's the woman fault for staying, but not the man fault for lashing she, beaten woman come normal then. Tamika sit down still, quiet, water full up in she eye again. She shakes she head hard, maybe to say no, it's not normal. But she didn't open she mouth to tell me nothing. He doesn't always be so, I say. It was partly true. When we meet, he was nice, he was sweet. If you see that man, hard body for days, I don't go and give that smile. 100 watts he could turn off and turn on when he wants, and I ain't lie. He hooked me with his voice. You know, he's a singer. Voice like butter. I smile to remember them days. She shakes her head. I know he's a big famous singer and he handsome. To look at him, you would never know he's a monster. That make me jump. No, Tamika, he's not a monster. He liked to lash and he liked to. I study if I could really tell this girl all the things you're just doing. No, he's not no monster. He take care of me. He put me in house, a real house. I never meet a man who loved me so much. I watch she. My eyes was dry. He still love her. I say confidently. So I wonder if I self believe it. And
I mean, it's just what is about that chapter to me. You addressed so much of the real reaction that people have when they don't understand the dynamics of domestic violence, of gender-based violence in people's homes and in people's lives. The instant response, why didn't you? And the onus on a woman. And you answered it right there. You gave her her voice, and she has, the thing is with Alethea, we talk about her being a likable character. She is a believable character. She's a real character. This is based on so many real stories, you know, in a lot of ways. Maybe not directly based on a real story, but this is a pattern that happens, you know, and that he's not a monster and that she doesn't see it that way. She has agency in the situation as well, right? So, what are you, for somebody who's reading this, for whom it might resonate, what is the underlying message of that she's trying to give that people might need to receive?
that the likelihood of you being killed or maimed in such a relationship is a real possibility.
Mm,
And that you should, you know, get some skates on and try to figure out how to leave. And there are ways that there are people who can help.
yeah,
And that if you open up and tell people about it, you will get help, you will
right.
get support. Um, I mean, the resolution in this book, I don't think many people could hope for that kind of or should hope for that kind of resolution, but um, but there are other ways to escape a violent relationship, and also for men who read this book, you know, I don't know what they would think, you know, about the idea of the violence being a kind of a product of this weird twisted love between these two people who that's literally all she's ever known.
Mm-hmm.
And so it would seem for him, you
Right.
know, so it's like they're both stuck in this place where they can't make different choices because they don't know how.
Yeah, they're repeating the same patterns that they've been taught. I hope that men read this book. I would say that this is a book, I think, you know, obviously it has a woman on the cover and it is told from the perspective of a woman, but men need to read this kind of stuff too, and they need to think about it. And let's talk about the masculinity in the book and the characters. Is there a good man in this book, in your opinion, as the author?
Well, okay, so this whole question of like what is a good man, right?
Mhm.
So from a certain perspective, Leo is a good man.
Which
He right,
perspective?
I open big, big, big.
Whose perspective? Tell me. From the
Well,
author's perspective or from Alethea's perspective or
no, from yes, from Alethea's perspective, he's a good man because
what's in
he
house?
he put her in house. You know what I mean? He's willing to marry her, and for a childless, barren woman of a certain age, that is a very look. I'm not putting words in my mouth to say
No,
this is how people feel and this is how people behave. You know,
yeah, you're being real,
it
but what is
sucks.
what kind of house? You know, like we get the description of the house as being disgusting, as being, you know, no food in the fridge, no, you know what I mean? And she has to deal with that if she doesn't even want to take a shower in the shower because it's gross, but he puts you in house. So it's like it comes
It's
back,
still a house.
it's still a house. It comes back to what she was given all her life, kind of gives you the expectations where you could feel satisfied, right? with what you're given under these circumstances, that is not necessarily a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there's Leo, who has his huge suitcase of issues that he's carrying around with him everywhere. You know,
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
and
Yeah, but you
yeah.
know, the scenes where he's nice
Mm-hmm.
and he's like just before he turns into a monster.
Yeah.
He it's you know, whew, real sweet guy, and then like this thing goes up in his brain and he just is
It's the
lost.
cycle of trauma. I was gonna bring this up later in the discussion, but last night I wound up staying up late and watching the Tina Turner documentary
Mm.
on HBO, and I don't know if you've seen it yet.
I haven't yet, no.
You have to see it because it is the cycle of abuse again playing out. That the treatment you receive from your mom and your father, and is the treatment you might expect from a lover later in your life. And how do you pull yourself back and say, no, wait, I deserve better and this is not it. You know what I mean? And it takes some people a really long time to do that. Some people never do, right? So, I mean, for a woman like our protagonist, what are the options in Trinidad? Because she's saying here, you know, I don't want to call the police. There's a policeman who gets involved. He might be a good man. He might be a good man in the book. Is he? Would you
Yeah, but
say?
it's a police dog. Oh,
Yeah.
I have a rule about police. You get involved with no man who had no
It's
gun.
true. It's very true. I mean, he tried in the book. He didn't show those elements, and he showed up as a white knight kind of to try and but
Yeah,
yes,
and he
but yes,
doesn't try to sleep with her, and
right.
she feels safer with him
Hmm.
to a certain extent. No, I no, you know what? I honestly believe there are good men in the book, and each one of the men is trying to be good in his own way.
Okay.
The boss who is sleeping with her, one and his wife, but he's a good businessman.
Mhm.
The
And
one not interfering with what she put him there to do.
not a good
You
husband,
know,
but he's a good businessman. He does seem to actually care about her and worry about her a little bit. He offers to put
Mhm.
her in house too, but she doesn't want that.
Not from a married man. That's
Mm-mm,
crazy.
mm-mm. Yeah, yeah. Oh boy. So, but Jerry is good. Jerry might be my favorite. Jerry is
What do
the,
you
the
like about Jerry?
well, there's a familiarity with Jerry. Jerry, for people who have not read the book, Jerry is her gay friend who helps her to decorate the front windows of the shop. And he sees right through her veneer of bravado and is able to, because he has been through similar things, immediately able to identify her as somebody who is dealing with domestic violence and shares, you show me yours, I'll show you mine, and here's why you should leave. And he tries to empower her um to make the right choice that he thinks she should make, you know. Um and he's carrying his own cross too, right? But I mean, I do think that he tries to be a good man and is a good man, so there's that, which is good. There's the priest, right? So priests and policemen. Priest is a big character, right?
Yeah, there's a teacher too, but I mean, is he a good man? He married a teenager.
Mm, yep. Another way, and well,
You
that's
know, and
yeah.
and this, so the question of what is a good man, right? A good man is not whether he's faithful or not. A good man is not whether he hits you or not. A good man, I think, it's so much, it's so complex of an issue that
Shades of
you
gray.
know this is why for people who are like Alicia and in situations where they love this person with all their heart,
Hmm.
and if it wasn't for this just one little thing, the one little thing being that they just be them.
Big,
If it
big
wasn't
thing.
just that one little thing, they would be in a perfect relationship, you know. And so that's why I hesitate to say, but is there really a good man in this?
shades of
Yeah.
gray, right? Shades of gray. But I mean, like, it again, there's no the characters are fully fleshed out. It's not two-dimensional, it's three-dimensional. So everybody that has that element of, are they good or are they bad? It's not really necessarily that simple. They are human, right? And they're going through stuff and they may not have the tools to unpack what they're going through in the right way. Um, I don't know. Um, let's talk about the goals of this, it centers around the fire fets. What
Hmm.
made you choose the fire fets, and talk about that part before we lead into the next reading of it? Um, why you wanted to put her in the fire fets?
Well, the best way to tell a story is to have a new kid in town come and see it.
Mm-hmm.
And for her to have been a Fet virgin, character has never been to a Fet before, which is not as inconceivable as you may think. You could live in Trinidad and never go one of these big, massive soca fets that we used to have in the
I'd
before
never
times,
play
and people
mass, yeah.
could rub up on one another. She never played mass. She was never involved in that because
Mm-hmm.
she grew up this very weird, staunchly Catholic um, thing, and then totally divorced herself from her family, and then blah blah blah. But she ended up in a space where she didn't make choices like that for herself anymore,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And so she had never gone play mass. She never went no big fete. So being able to walk her literally through the gates of Fire Fete, even from outside, from the time they jump out the car,
Mm-hmm.
you get the cigarette vendors and the woman in the too tight white leotard and the
Yes.
fella in all yellow,
Mm-hmm.
all
Mm-hmm.
yellow. It's like this wonderful, like amazing, like display of Trinidadian humanity. She goes straight into the fete and has this experience of the fete, and I love a fete. I
Yes.
mean,
Miss a fets. It's
I
been
love
a
a
long time.
fete.
Can you read from this section and take us into it?
Yeah, sure. Okay,
Okay.
so in this scene, she is in the crowd and Bungie on stage, or is it Roy Keith? One of them big bands on stage. So people are pushing. I didn't know what to do. All I feel was a surge, a wave of hot, sweating flesh shoving me forward along with it. I tried to resist at first, on my toes and struggling to keep my footing as people pushed me left and right, bumping my body, but then I was literally off my feet. I didn't weigh much, and it's like I get suspended between sweaty hips, waving arms, thrusting chest. I start to panic when I see the flag vanish, and I try to claw my way backwards, but my foot wasn't touching the ground at all. I had nothing to keep me upright, and I start to sink. I just make a grab for the nearest thing to hold on to, and that turned out to be a shoulder. My fingers curl around it and dig in hard. The man whose shoulder it was turned to watch me, see me like a drunken in people, and angle through the heaving crowd. He managed to wedge himself under me so I was propped up on his hip like a baby. I cling to him. If you see the size of the man, the pushing and shoving cooled down. When I realized he stopped moving and nobody wasn't going to trample me, I relaxed and let myself slide down from off of him. I stand up next to this man. He was 6'5", built like an ox, a big wall of a red man. People come up closer around me, like waves rolling on the sea. The air was thick and hot, and I couldn't hear nothing but the music washing over me and the crowd around me singing along to every word. Somebody shoved me from the side and pushed me towards the man, and he catch me against the chest. I stiffen up, afraid again, but he started to laugh at me, watching me in my face. I'm not going to eat you, little girl. I blushed and laughed back, just still a little nervous, but relaxing a little more. He had a kind face. Feeling like a castaway, I turned slow, to watch the show. He bent his knees and sways. He bent his knees and swayed his hips, and I started to sway mine too. This wasn't like Leo crushing me. The man hold me loose enough so I could pull away if I want, but hard enough so that the endless people rocking around we wouldn't separate we when we wine. The music started to seep into my skin, my muscles, my bones. I started to sweat. It wasn't just the movement of the body heat. It was like a fever sweat. And in a little while, I was soaking wet from my head to my foot. I looked around and didn't see nothing familiar, no face I knew. The man, big, rock hard body was all I could recognize. The rhythm was my rhythm. The dance was my dance. In a time when we start to move together like if we're doing it a long time, without talking, drifting with the crowd until we merge into it. I don't even know the exact moment when I stopped thinking at all. It only had this music and this wine, this man and this moment.
You really capture the vibes of a fete. I
Yeah.
it is the immersion, into that experience. And when you were reading it, I was thinking about the Trinidadianness of your language and the Trinidadianness of this experience. As an author, what is it like to make these decisions? And are you concerned at all that Trinidadian language or dialect will kind of challenge some of your international readers?
Well, I think the book is really well edited by
Mm-hmm.
a person who um, is not a Trinidadian.
Ah, okay. That's a secret weapon
Um,
there.
she's not Trinidadian. I think she's from Wales, and so and so she allowed the language to. Um, I don't want to say allowed. She welcomed the language.
Mm-hmm.
She was enthusiastic about the Creole, and what we tried to do was make it. I already use English spelling. I use standard English spelling
Mm-hmm.
as far as possible. It's just easier to read, I find.
Right.
Uh, and so everything is in the intonation and everything is in the, if I write THING, I'm not saying thing.
Right.
um, so we hope that it's accessible. But
Right.
even so, you know what? I'm sorry. How many of us have read Wuthering Heights and that incomprehensible northern dialect that they have there? And we read it and we read Joyce and we read whoever else in their own language. Come now.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, Selvon did this so well so many years ago
So
that I don't
long
think
ago, absolutely. So the next
this was
question is
revolutionary.
right, exactly. So did you feel like you needed any kind of glossary or anything for anybody, or you're just like they will figure it out as context? I felt that the context pulls you through, and I like that the editor was not a Trini. You know what I mean? Because it to me is almost like you're giving an international reader, and I hope they feel the same way. You're giving them the gift, and you're giving right. You're allowing them into our space and into our conversation and into our language, and you're giving them the gift of new slang, new ways of expression, and new ways of understanding. That's how I
Yeah,
feel
that's
about it.
an interesting perspective. Thanks.
Come along and listen to
Yeah,
what you have to say. You might learn something.
yeah.
I want to talk.
I,
Go ahead.
I just want to say that I've always loved writing in Creole, and I want to, just say that I write well in Creole because I had a lot of practice. I had a column in the Guardian for a number of years, written in Trinidad Creole, and I wouldn't have had that, without some awesome editors.
Hmm.
So shout out to Judy Raymond and
Yes.
Lennox Grant, Dominic Calipsad, some of these people who.
Yeah. Guardian greatness all around. I want to talk a little bit about my least favorite character in the book is her mom, and the weight of the maternal figure in terms of what she gave her daughter as expectations for the rest of her life. Um, do you feel sympathy for the mom? And are we supposed to feel sympathy for the mom?
You know, uh, so for the people who haven't yet read the book, the main character's mother is that is the real monster in the book, right?
Mm,
She is verbally abusive, physically abusive, um, and allows the victimization of the child by other people,
right.
and basically does not support her. I put it to you that that's a common mother in Trinidad. That that's not an unheard of situation, and that mother, she may be drawn with like maybe heavy-handed strokes, but I think she's more common than we like that. The degree of the cutters might not be so severe. The extent of the neglect might not be so severe, but there's a kind of a way that um, sometimes it just bounce up a mother who really,
Should have never
you
been.
know, is like that, you know. And that's how she manages to negotiate the world, to navigate the world, because she had no man.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about how, you know, culturally, this whole thing about having a man is this really important thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
That's
she,
the value. That's what they see as their value and their currency in the world.
right? So she didn't have no man, she had no husband.
Yeah.
She had this little child. She, I think she was selling eggs or something in the market. You know, so life is really tough for her in terms of economic survival. So when she gets an opportunity for help, what is the cost of the help? You know, a lot of people will take the help at any cost because it's the difference between survival and not, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things that is so realistic and so true in the book as well is the way that shame traps you and the way that shame um, can take away your ability to make wise or safe choices for yourself. Um, and I think I want to talk a little bit about that. How how does your character deal with shame, and how do you wish women in these sort of circumstances would deal with this?
Wow. I wish women didn't have to deal with this,
Mm,
but the world being what it is.
right.
I wish that people could just say, you know, my partner hit me, and I may feel like it's my fault and like I deserve it, but the truth is that they don't really have the right to do that. So that from that perspective, it's not about blame or anything. It's about this is assault.
Mm-hmm.
So we could think about it from because I wouldn't shame to say I went in somewhere and somebody hit me. You know, I would tell everybody, it's like, boy, I can't believe I just walking down the road, just saw this man just hit me a right hand.
Yeah.
So what is the difference if it happens in my home and the perpetrator is my partner? Huge difference. Feeling the weight of responsibility and complicity and all sorts of other things. But the reality is, it's the same as if somebody walking down the road and just hit you just for no reason, for no reason.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that we if we could unburden ourselves of this idea that the violence has some difference. It's just violence, you know, and that we could take that kind of judgment out of it, that people would be like more open about it, and then on both sides, you know, if your friends know you're a man who every time you get drunk just beat up three fellas in a bar, your friends will talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
But if your friends don't know that every time you get drunk is go home and also beat your wife, they don't know how would they say. You know
Right.
what I mean? So it's something we need to talk about more generally speaking.
Absolutely. And I think that is part of shaking off those those shackles, right? So I also was we talked a little bit earlier before this recording began about colorism and about she her role as a light skin or white trini. Would you call her a white trini? You know, no. What would you describe her as? And what does that, because it becomes a weapon, but it's just part of her life as well, right? It doesn't protect her.
But she chooses for it not to protect her. She could have angled her life in such a way that it would have protected her well. But she chose to reject that protection for whatever reason or
Right.
plot device.
Right.
But yeah, also, so her position is that she's very light skinned, very straight hair, light colored eyes, and um, in the right light and wearing the right shoes, I guess she could pass a white, right? In Trinidad, which could mean almost anything because if you see what local white is in Trinidad, you know, it's a wide spectrum of brown, beige, and white. So the question is not that she's actually racially white, but she has enough light skinnedness or straightness of hair, straightness of nose, certain arrangement of features that she could have access to the things of light skin privilege, which still exists.
It still exists. But she
Yeah.
recognizes that it doesn't place her above or, anybody, like just in terms of the life that she has, despite the fact that her mother felt that way. And I thought that was
Yeah, but the thing with the mother was light just like her. She and the mother look alike.
right.
But the person that she loved most in the world did not look like them.
Right. Yeah. And
So
I think
that kind of mirror gave her a different perspective.
yeah, I think that's one of the things that I liked about the character that made her more likable to me is that she didn't use her shade as a weapon, and she didn't see it as, and it could have been a shield, but it was just a part of her world. And you contrast that to her mom and the upbringing that she had, where there are people who, when you don't have anything else, see that as your prize and see that as your victory. And that is, I believe, what carried her mom through the circumstances that she was in. Even though she was a woman who sold eggs, she was a white woman who sold eggs, right? So she felt like that was something that elevated her above her neighbors who were good, decent, hardworking people who were, in fact, better human beings than her, you
Yeah.
know? And you
Yes,
think
exactly.
about how many people might feel that way, and the lens through which this book shows that, I think, is just an interesting spectrum of Trinidadianness that you examined. Um, you just gave us so much real Trinidad in this book. You really did.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope some real Trinidadian doesn't read it and go, "What shit? This woman, right?"
I don't think that is, I mean, to me, that cannot be the takeaway. I'm very curious to know what people have to say in the chats and in terms of the comments, like what are people receiving from the book? Because to me, I mean, I moved abroad a long time ago, but there's no denying that this is a real portrait of what happens in Trinidad, and not just now, throughout history. And I think that, the way you structure it as well, let's talk a little bit about that, because you take us between the past and the present. How was it to make those decisions as an author, in terms of how are you telling the backstory? What made you decide to kind of sprinkle that in the way that you did?
The original version of the manuscript had four different timelines. The contemporary one, which is 2005, the one where she's 5 years old, the one where she's 15 years old, and no, okay, three then. There's one where she's 15, right? And then maybe another one. And she's like in her early 20s or something. I can't remember. But the idea was to show how, because you might meet a red woman someday and think, but this girl vain, huh? This girl always in makeup. This girl always have on her high heel shoes. This girl, look, she always on her neck, she always like she don't wear rubber slippers, and I know how women are, and we talk like that, right? Like we do get very shady sometimes about how women present themselves, particularly to other women.
And an assumption of what they might think of themselves.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But do you think that this girl cannot leave the house without makeup because she's so ashamed of her face, like just who she is, like her whole self? She don't like her, you know. So like taking you kind of behind that, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, if you
Don't
understand what I
apologize at all. No, you made me think of years ago I was on a panel with an author and activist named Michaela Angela Davis, and she was talking about that same thing, how women will look at another woman and be like, she thinks she's cute, but she should think she's cute. She's cute. Why is that a problem? Why, like, why can you not have see a woman with self-esteem who feels good about themselves without trying to unpack it or unravel it in any way that you can? Um,
Mhm.
and I think it's something that we just naturally sometimes do, that it's good to look at and examine and try to stop.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but in general, her, I mean, because she thinks about this relationship with her brother a lot, you
Mhm.
know, in during this period of the book, so there's a lot of meditation on the imbalances, in class imbalances, skin color, money, you know,
Mhm.
a lot of meditation on those different things
Yeah.
in the book. Um,
I want to talk a little bit about also the fact that I don't want to give away too much details of the book, right? Because I still want people to obviously read it and be surprised by things that happen. But one of the, um, I guess, wake up moments is a murder that takes place in the middle of downtown Port of Spain, in a scene that sadly was vivid enough to be realistic to me. It wasn't an unrealistic scene the way that you drew it. Um, and seeing the specter of somebody who might be you as a wake up call. Do you think that that is what it takes to wake up a person like Alethea? Yeah, your face just said a lot without like,
I mean, it's a lot, the idea that you need to actually see a dead body or two for it to sink home that this is your fate if you don't, you
and then
know.
people had to tell her that repeatedly after having witnessed it. It was like, hey, don't forget that this happened, like,
Yeah, it was a bit much. I think my editor and I just possibly discussed whether I said that a little too much.
no, I don't think you said it too much at all. No, I think that to me, it didn't take me out of the character. It didn't take me out of the story. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that it took that to wake her up, and that she kept having to be woken up almost. It's like she was in sleep paralysis, basically, and people are like trying to shake her awake and be like, this could be you, get out of it, but she didn't, the all of the factors that make you stay and make you think that that can't be me. She was able to pull from those cards, you
Mhm.
know, like how do you, if you're a person in these circumstances, how do you wake yourself up without such a dramatic wake up call?
I don't know. I don't know. I know that we have a lot of good resources right now, and I know that there's like a new police domestic violence unit, and
So yes, this is one thing I wanted to kind of
yeah,
end on, or kind of, as we get towards the end of the discussion, the real life resources that I'm hoping have gotten much better. And you allude to that in the book, that where her friend is saying, no, the police does help now, like, I mean, so that wasn't fiction, right? Or is that what you? Okay, all right, so not really. Still,
well, we
better
have a
reason.
new we have a new domestic violence unit,
Okay.
which is supposed to give priority to these kinds of incidents. Um, but never have we needed such in history as a moment like this. If you
Mhm.
understand what I mean, it's a really difficult moment for us, I think. There are other organizations, the Stephanie Leach is the head Womantra, as in WOMANTRA, is a Trinidadian Caribbean feminist organization, and they have done a lot of work around domestic violence, pub, like public information programming and so on. So their page is actually a really good resource. So you can check them out there on Facebook. Right, good. But there's like a wide variety of different kinds of organizations dealing with it. And sadly, they're never enough, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and especially for, even we are a small country, and we could definitely use more resources, more shelters, more places for people to be able to escape if they have to, or to
Yeah,
be.
more resources for men.
And resources for men, absolutely. In terms of anger management, or I guess, I don't know if those resources exist. I hope that, I don't know. I really am just hoping that this book is able to kind of break open the silence and be heard. And like you were saying, this is such an important time, and so many people are shouldering this in in this pandemic period. It has exacerbated things that have always existed, right? So um you think about a woman like Alethea not even having the capacity to go to a store to work and get away for the day, right? Like, what can we do as a society to help her be free and be safe? Because this book, it gave me so many feelings. It gave me so many feelings, because part of the feelings were desire for her to shake things up without, I'm trying to not give away too much, without an outside savior, you know be how to possibly be your own savior when you don't know how.
But is she her own savior?
No, she's not. That's what I'm saying. It gave me so many feelings. I just wanted to be like, girl, but you can't, you know what I mean? Because there's so many layers to the reason that she's in the circumstances that she's in. And that's what makes it so damn real.
Yeah. Well, I just hope that people who read the book get the impression that there is no lost cause, and that, no matter how bad you think you may be or whatever you think you may have done to deserve, you ain't do nothing to deserve it. Just, you know, come, your life can be more than this.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And you deserve happiness and you deserve security, and it doesn't have to be something you sacrifice one for the other. Yeah. All right. So I want to see if we have comments or questions. I'm not sure if we're in this chapter now. But I have been seeing all kinds of comments from people that we know popping up in the chat. Um, are you looking?
I'm looking in the chat. No, no, there's one comment, but didn't have a question. That's all
I,
right.
I'm definitely just seeing people that we know who are authors, who are friends, who are people who support you, people who have known us from various chapters of our lives, present and showing up, which is a wonderful
Yeah,
thing. It's nice to
thanks
feel
for
like,
joining. Yes, Barbara.
yeah, right? Auntie Barbara.
Oh, hey, that's my sister.
Nice.
Viviana.
Until a spring.
Eiffel. Attila. Andre. Hey, everyone. No questions. Okay.
I think that, I mean, the thing is, there's not gonna really be questions until, or I mean, there might be questions, but until these people have had the opportunity to read this book and to immerse themselves, they might have questions after, I mean, it might take a little while for them to develop their own questions. The questions that I was left with at the end of reading it were truly, what resources can we do to help people like this get out of this? And not just Alethea, but as you were saying, Leo, you know, um, a man who is trapped by his own circumstances, by his ego, by his shortcomings, by his insecurities. Um, you know, there's less resources for men like that and more almost fuel for that continuation of mentality, you know? And I don't know what is going to break um, the male view out of it, you know? I think the woman can recognize, I need to get out of this relationship. I need to not, be in this life. But the men, there can be a deep denial in what you are doing to another person. And I think about it, I'm like, I don't know if Leo recognized what he was really, did he see himself as a monster? Did he know his behavior was monstrous?
I think he knew his behavior was bad, but he didn't see himself as bad.
Yeah. I mean, or does he just see that as part of how men treat women? And that's just what it is.
Mm. Well, you'll have to read the book to have that discussion.
You have to,
Yes.
you have to read it yourself and see what you think about
Very
it.
nuanced.
Exactly. So, well, let's talk about what is next for you. And I mean, this book is out. Um, how do you, as an author based in the Caribbean, what are the steps that you're doing to get it out? Because I know authors have a ton of events now. Everything is online. Do you have other online events that are coming up? Do you have plans to try to share this in the Caribbean, as share it in Trinidad?
uh, well, I have a launch coming up tomorrow.
Okay.
An official launch by the publisher. So that's one event. And
Okay.
I have something lined up for some summer writing festival, but not a ton of bookings. I wait to see what will happen in the future. I'm very because again I'm not agented,
Mhm.
so
You're doing this on your own. You're a one woman show.
yeah, yeah,
You
it's
need
kind
your
of an element of surprise and God and all of this,
Oh, well,
So
yes, of course, there's that. But I mean, this is where this is an opportunity to address your village as well. This is where we can step up for you and help to get the book out there to our various audiences as well, right?
yeah, I would love that.
Yeah.
Um, and you know what? You asked what's coming up, what I'm working on.
Yes, tell me.
Okay. I have done a children's book. It's called Thank You, Lord,
Okay.
and it's coming in um, by September. And it's an
Okay.
illustrated children's, like a baby board book.
So for how old? What's the
Yeah,
demographic?
toddlers.
Toddlers. Thank you, Lord. So this is drawing from your faith and your spirituality.
Well, yes, but it's not like a church book or anything. It's just saying thank you for little things like, trees. And it's illustrated beautifully by Nikita Joseph,
Oh,
Kit Joseph, if anybody knows his work. He's really, really good. And so I'm really looking forward to
that's really cool.
that, among other things.
Well, you always have some little iron on the fire somehow doing something, but
I'm a hustler, baby.
exactly. And she could sing. No, but what I love about it also is that you're not limited um by genre. You're not limited by demographic. You have written YA, you've written as adult as it can get, and now you're going all the way back to toddlers. So there's really a little Lisa Allen-Agostini for everybody in the family.
Yes, I love that.
Life can have a little Lisa.
I
But
love
that's
that.
it's cool that you're not burdened and you're not like, I have to, this is what I do and this is, I'm stuck in this. Like, you're not. You're like, I am going to be as unstuck as I could possibly
Yeah, yeah.
be.
I'm all about that life to explore what I can do as a writer.
Yeah. I'm seeing they do have, oh, the Q&A also has. Okay, here's a question. You're also a short story writer and a poet. Do you see synergies in your writing across these genres? That question comes from Andre Bagu.
Yeah, 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 of course.
Oh,
I, I like to think that I write poetically, or maybe it's just that my poetry is prosaic. I know, but there's definitely some crossover between the poetic voice and the prose that I write, particularly in the in the more sort of literary stories that I write. Although, like, they're all like that now anyway. There's really no division between popular or anything like that. It's just all how Lisa does write. And,
Mhm.
uh, and yes, so it is a bit of a poetic voice. My attention to detail and kind of OCD research. Listen, when I say that the character wearing a cognac hobo bag from whoever, I researched that. And I could tell you that that bag was out at that time and that year, and it was hot. I researched everything, and that I guess is like part of my academic stuff, my journalism stuff. Um, so it all feeds into one another, you know.
That was one of the aspects of the character that I liked, and I thought that that made her so much of a real woman. All her little asides, all her little thoughts about fashion, and she would look at this person from head to toe and know that came from there, that came from here, this is from here, and you know what I mean. And even in how she put herself together and presented herself, um, she sizes up the world in a very particular way that is inspired by the magazines that so many of us have been reading for years.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
was that part of you? What you said, did you enjoy that part of the research or?
Well, I like fashion. Some of my earliest memories would be like reading my big sisters, fashion magazines. And I had one sister who was feminist, and my girl was reading Elle, not Elle, Ms. Magazine.
Okay,
So, as a little girl, I'd be reading Ms. Magazine along with Vogue.
very
So
nice.
just to get that balance
That's
perspective.
it, exactly.
And yeah, so I love, I don't do it much now, but I used to really love reading fashion magazines and thinking about trends and doing fashion reporting. And so it was a big part of my life and my career.
Mhm.
And up until last year, I was Miss Beach Face. Miss Beach Face.
Pandemic shook it up. It just
So, I really do enjoy things about makeup and clothes and fashion. And so it was a real pleasure for me to actually do that research to fill out the character and like what were they wearing? What were they selling in the shop? You
yes,
know, just
very realistic. I without naming relatives, I had a relative who was involved in a store very much like that. So I used to spend quite a bit of time between West Mall and downtown, not even the falls, like, excuse me. And the depiction of the shop is very vivid to me as somebody who was a shop baby at parts of her life. Like figuring out what's gonna go in the window and how to get people to come in and all of that stuff and dead stretches and the lack of customers and what do you do during those moments, all of that. I was just like, I know this life, and you did a great job of capturing it. So I can't wait for people to read it. I think we're being encouraged to wrap it up now and leave the people wanting more. So let's wrap it up. Is there anything that you want people to know about you, about what's coming up, how they can follow you, how they can find you, where they can buy the book as we wrap this up?
well, I think you can actually, if you're here, buy the book from the Center for Fiction. There was a link in the registration, so please do that if you can. And the the what do I want people to know? I just want people to buy the book, share the book. You know what? Buy a copy of the book and give it to somebody else who you know is not going to buy a book for themselves, who might need shoes or something else. Buy the book and give somebody. That'd be nice.
That is great. Absolutely fantastic. The Bread the Devil Need by Lisa Allen-Agostini. Thank you so much for your time for this rich and wonderful discussion. Thank you to the, Brooklyn Caribbean Literary Festival, um, Bishop's Girls Around the World.
Around the world, girls. Bishop School. I am so happy. Thank you guys. It was a real pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you both. That conversation, I don't know about everybody else, but that conversation makes me want to read that book yesterday. I'm so excited. I can't wait to get my hands on it. I'm really looking forward to it. I know everybody else is too. And we'll get those copies to you as soon as they get them from the publisher. So thank you both, Patrice and Lisa, and thanks to the Brooklyn Caribbean Literary Festival always, and to all the amazing people in our audience. We hope to see you all in person someday. And until then, take care and keep reading.